Okay, that I'm trying to catch up, going to get in the slides. There was the sources tab, excuse me, the slide. We talked about record review, and there are the steps there again described. And I want to we slow down a little bit here with subordinate names for corporate bodies. I know that I think there's one person on the spreadsheet that has a Smithsonian corporate body name that's subdivided, so I wanted to make sure that we're covering these particular steps. Um, Earlier in the, hold on, I'm sorry, in SNACSchool, Jodi covered subordinate corporate body names in Module 2 under all the details about authority control. The example we use for subdividing corporate body names is the Field Projects Division of the Getty Conservation Institute. The finding aid, their clip out is there. One of the things that sets these types of name apart, this type of name apart, is the fact that it has division in it. Jodi presented that one slide about direct and indirect subdivisions for corporate body names, and this is a really good example of it. Field projects division, standing alone by itself, would not be a helpful entry into an authority file. It has division there. Field projects, I think some could argue that that's pretty specific for the name of the division, but a division of, of what larger organization, I think, is really the question. So, according to the approach of RDA and the traditional entry of corporate body names, those that have these very vague divisions to them get entered subordinately under a higher level corporate body name to clarify the relationship between the two. So I'm going to be using this example, and I'm just going to copy and paste for right now so I can get back into, I'm going to go back to my SNAC dev account. I'm going to go to dashboards. I'm going to run the search. Oh, by the way, I mentioned earlier with the review requests in the message center, as soon as you get a message in your message center area, SNAC will show you this yellow box here to let you know. Again, up here beside message to the right is an indicator of 2. It means that you have 2 new emails in that message center. Okay, we can search for the projects division. Oh, look, Jerry forgot to delete it. Okay, pretend like you didn't see that. And this is how you create it. You go to New Constellation, Corporate Body, and create name. And the name starts with, of course, the Getty Conservation Institute. And the subordinate name would be Fields Project Division. And the component that you designate here is subdivision name. Paste that in, but I'm going to take away the top part of the name. And that's how you would enter a subordinate name. Now notice that SNAC automatically adds in any necessary punctuation that you need to separate the levels of your name. So you don't have to do that. You never have to add any punctuation at the end of your name elements. We're going to designate it as preferred, English, Latin, form is the authorized form, and rule set, of course, is RDA. And then you continue moving through your reconciliation steps, create new constellation, and then proceed as you normally would, adding elements for a corporate body heading in SNAC. So those are really the only maybe that step, those 2 steps there, dividing the name up between name and subdivision name are really the only 2 things you need to be aware of when dealing with one of these subordinate names. I'm going to quickly push that to publish to get it off my screen. Okay. I'm going to hop back to the slides for a bit. And of course, there's all the information you need to know about that. And then we move on to person names. For my example, in the person name demonstration, I'm going to use the name of the artist, Jodi Quick to See Smith. I've already opened a lot of information about her. Let me close down some things here. I have remove my IAIA stuff. I have the Wikipedia article for Jodi Quick to See Smith open. I have a page open for her that I found at the National Museum of Women in the Arts. And then I have also the entry of her oral history interview at the Archives of American Art. And this is going to be the resource off of which I base my creation of the record. And as opposed to using a finding aid in this example, I'm going to be using one single catalog record from the Archives of American Art. So just to demonstrate the kind of variety you have when you're adding your resource relations. So we'll get to those steps soon. But that's the research I've done so far. I'm going to return to my editor's dashboard and I am going to search for her name. Oops, pardon me. And it returns no results there. I'm going to change over to do a general search. Just in case, I'm going to add the hyphens as part of her middle name or her middle name element, and nothing there. And I'm also going to run a browse search, but I'm going to, of course, start with Smith. See where it ends up. I can also, again, filter down to only person names. Click search there. And it takes us down to the middle of the list, and we see the options that we have, both the closest match, which is Smith, comma, J. Austin, but then the alphabetical run going up and down behind it, and we do not find Jodi Quick to See Smith's name. We've now determined that it is not in SNAC, so we go back to our editor SNAC dashboard, and we move to Create New Constellation. You'll see that the creation steps visually are identical to creating corporate body names. The same would hold true for families if you venture on to do family records in SNAC. So here we designate the entity type as person, and then begin building the components of Smith's name. First, you can add the surname, Smith, easy enough. Then add the component for forename, and this will have both elements of the forename are Jodi and Quick to See Smith. And then finally, her life years, her date elements. Let's see, and I know I've entered it before so many times, but 1940 to 2025. She died just last January. We're going to establish this as the preferred version of the name. It is presented in English and in Latin. And we're going to designate under our rules, it is the authorized form, and our rule set is, of course, RDA as always. You'll scroll back up once you have your name elements all entered and click continue. And SNAC then runs that familiar, now to everyone, familiar step of the reconciliation. Scroll down, have a quick look. You see, quick look, no pun intended. You see where it's really pulling in any instance of those keyword elements to make sure that you're seeing everything that's already in SNAC that even comes close to a match. None of these are an exact match, so I click Create New Constellation. And here we are at the editing screen, familiar from the last steps for corporate body. And we move through the steps. Now, the steps, though, I found that from my research, that she is also known as, I'm not going to, I know what it is, but it's in the articles or the other biographical information. Is that she is also known by a variant name, and that variant name is Ghost Dance Dress. So I'm going to add, in this case, there is no surname, it's a forename. But always, always with person names, add the same date element component as you did for the preferred name. So date 1940, 2025. This holds for every variant name that you create. That's and it's not. This is not a SNAC rule. This is an RDA name cataloging rule. You always add the date element, even though the name components are clearly very different. You leave it as not preferred, but it is English and Latin. Under our rules, we designate it as an alternative form, and the rule set is still going to be RDA in all cases. So that's how you add a variant person name. So then we can move on to the history tab. Unless there are any questions that I need to pause here, let me know. So on the history tab, we'll go ahead and cover biography. Now, as I said earlier, I'm basing the creation of Smith's record on the finding aid or the catalog record for her oral history interview at the Archives of American Art. So I'll be using elements from this description to fill in parts of her record. Notice that the biographical historical note for Smith is rather short compared to other research that we found. But I can use this, and this is again up to the cataloger's judgment. It was, as we've called it over the years, use your best judgment for creating a biography or a history note. You are certainly welcome to add to this. You can pull in additional information, more specific information from her Wikipedia article, the National Museum of Women in the Arts article on her. But for this example, I'm going to stop here with just this rather brief note. Code for English and Latin, and then click Save. Then I'm going to move on to exist dates. And in this case, we know the date of her birth and the date of her death. So we can add that here as a new date range. She was born in 1940, but if I take a quick look at her Wikipedia page, it's going to tell me the exact month and day. So we have January 15th. Again, you have the option of creating or entering a natural language expression for this date, but it's not required. But then the type of the start date is the date of her birth. And then add the death information back to her article. So I don't get, and it's January 24th. January 24th. Again, the natural language is optional, so I'll move past that. And the type here is the date of her death. And save. The next element under history is places. And typically when you're dealing with a person and you've got enough background research done, you generally will know the place of both their birth and their death, maybe not. Again, these elements are not required. by any stretch, and you can move through the record and save it ultimately without having this kind of information in there. But generally, we have a lot of information from our research. Smith was born in St. Ignatius Mission in Montana, and I'm pretty sure St. And one tip here is that it's almost always spelled out. And there's St. Ignatius, Montana. The type here is associated place, and the role is birth. Save it. And because we know from our research, we know that she passed away while living in Corrales, New Mexico, we can also add that element here. Corrales, New Mexico. The type is associated place, and the role is death. Now, you notice that when I start typing here in the geographic places, it will start to, SNAC anticipates your searching, and there are a lot of headings. There are millions and millions of headings for geographic, as you would imagine. And it's because these headings come in from geonet.org, I think it is. And we use the geonet.org, or excuse me, geonames.org, latitude and longitude coordinates to create the mapping features that we will eventually see in SNAC. So that's the history tab. Demographics, like as promised, we do a little bit more with demographics with person names. However, I would tell you that the elements for genders and nationalities is being phased out of SNAC. We are not in the business of assigning gender or nationality to anyone, and we are going to remove those elements from the system. You can enter information about languages used, though I don't see that being used very frequently. But occupations and subjects is a place where you can add a lot of descriptive information for your person, name, entity that helps searching for them in the future much easier. So let's do the obvious occupation, artist. And these are almost always in the plural. And again, as many occupations as that person had, you are free to welcome here. They could have been an educator, an art educator, perhaps, on and on. Painter, let's see, a painter, I think painter's in there. Just painters. You see that they're also offered in the non-plural, and that is a cleanup effort. Please choose the plural forms. Because we have painter and painters, it's because not quite perfect information was pulled in with the ingest of EAD finding aids, and that's where we have some sort of standouts there. Then we can move to subjects and add Indian art or Indian artists. And again, you can add as many of these terms as warranted by your research. So it's going to differ from case to case, but these are the ones I'm going to add for Smith. Okay, so that's the demographics tab. And now I'm going to move on to the relations tab. And it's going to be the same approach as we had for corporate body names. You're going to be sort of acting off of the information you have about the finding aid or other descriptive instrument that has the description of the archival resources related to or about this by this person. So as I said before, we have the description of her oral history interview at the Archives of American Art. So I'm going to use that as my first resource relation. I'm going to take the link there, excuse me. Go back to add new resource relation, and again, search to make sure it's not already in the system. And this example is not on purpose. So I'm going to create a new one. But here it is an oral history interview, so I'm going to designate the resource type as oral history resource. And then you notice that that link that I searched just a few steps ago, that's already in here. SNAC knows to go ahead and add that link. I'm going to take the official title. I'm going to copy it and paste it back into the record here. The abstract, again, no need to, reinvent wheels. There's should be the summary is here. The extent, let's see what the extent of this is. If there's size under Archives of American Art describes it as size. And you will note, as you all know, from being archivists and librarians, that physical description statements are oftentimes varied. So always something to anticipate. Code for English and language, as they are both English and Latin. That's referring to the information we've entered here. And then the holding repository, Archives of American Art. And there we go. Then click continue. And that returns us back to Smith's record, where we fill in the last element here, and that's the role that creates that context between Smith and her own oral history interview, and she is, of course, the creator of. Sorry, I'm clearing my throat. My dogs who are starting to have a huge dog fight over across the office. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay, so and again, just like with corporate body names, add as many resource relations as you want to. Wherever you find collections by or about the entity, you can add them here and link them up according to the description that you find at the repository's websites. Internal CPF relations. From my research, I know that Smith attended and is an alumna of Framingham State College. And there's Framingham State College. I click the button there, scroll down, create relation, and I will designate the specific relationship as alumna or alumnus of. Alumnus or alumna of. You can use the descriptive note here for any number of detailed information you wish to add that you feel would be helpful to the future reader of this record. Something along the lines of Smith attended Framingham from 1965 to 1969. Something along those lines. I'm just sort of crafting that as I go, just to make an example. And then we save. So that's the internal. Internal CPF relations can really, really take off when you're, I think, when you're talking about relationships between persons. One of the, we have other common relationship types like corresponded with, spouse of, child of, grandchild of, parent of, and grandparent, yeah, their parent-in-law of, noting that if you want to create the reciprocal of that from the related entity, you would have to go to that entity's record in SNAC and create the reciprocal back to John A. Quick to C. Smith. I wish that there was an automatic setup for that to make the reciprocal relationships, but at the moment there isn't one. So that's how the internal CPF relations work with persons. Save that again. And then, like we did with the IAIA, we're going to create external related CPF links. And again, these are links out from the SNAC record to another authority source where that entity is described. Pardon me while I want to make sure I'm catching up on my slides. Oh, we moving right along here. There's the relationship CP internal. Okay, so again, for the demonstration today, we start out with Smith's authority record at the Library of Congress name authority file. So I'm going to open a new tab and go back to ID LOC, and I'm going to search for John A. Quick to see Smith. Yes, I have been here before, Library of Congress. You know me. It brings up again a lot of matching information from a variety of data sets at the Library of Congress, but make sure to go over and narrow it down to name authority. And in this case, it gives you a very straightforward approach to her authority record at the library name file. Click there. Again, here's her Library of Congress authority record, but up in the link, we will take in and then the digits, copy that, come back to our SNAC record, and we'll add another link here. We add a link here to the LOC name authority file, and then paste in the number and save that. And because I already have her Wikipedia article open, I'm going to do the same and create an external relationship to her Wikidata entry. Remembering again in Wikidata that the Q code is the data to seek out there. Come back to the SNAC record, add a new relation. External authority is scrolling down to Wikidata, and then paste in that Q code, and you're all set. Noticing here that SNAC completes that link for you. You don't have to do any really, picky coding here with the links. It sort of sets you up because SNAC already recognizes a certain number of external authority sources. So have a little bit of that work done for you. So that completes entries on the the relations tab. We skip over corporate description, of course, because this is not a corporate entity, and we're going to go straight to our sources, and we're going to enter sources that we consulted while researching Jean A. Quick to see Smith. Up in my tab, I'm going to go back to Wikidata, but change it back to the Wikipedia article. Go ahead and grab that link while I'm here. Notice that you can enter data into any field in SNAC in any order. It doesn't matter. You don't have to follow left to right or up and down. It's really very flexible in that regard. And then up here, give the citation Wikipedia, February 25th, 2026. From her article, you can take, again, just enough information to tell future users what you saw and what you found. And there's more there, of course. Then code for language and script. And that's all for that Wikipedia citation. We did consult, of course, the National Museum of Women in the Arts. So let's go and take a bit of information from there. Actually, I'm going to grab from the very top because it has her life dates. I'm going to copy, go back, add a new source, National Museum of Women in the Arts website, February 25th, 2026. And then I'm going to paste in the information that I found. make sure I have the correct link here. There's the link. Copy it, paste it there, and then do your language and script. And that's yet another source added to her record. So that's a sort of a left to right presentation of how to do a person name record in SNAC. Are there any questions so far? Yes, Marissa.
Say that you've made a mistake or you've left out information or more information comes out later on. Are you the only one in charge of this this entity, or can other people edit it later?
Other people can always edit it later. Once
Okay.
a SNAC a collaborator or partner editor has completed SNACSchool, that puts you in a position to edit any SNAC record you wish to edit in the entire system. It Once you have it in edit mode, you're the only person who can touch it at the moment. But once it goes through review and it gets published, then it's out there in the entire wider SNAC system, and other editors can have their go at it.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious about that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I've saved this now, and I'm gonna send it on for review. It's got a new record here. Please review. You don't have to send specific messages to your reviewer. One of the things we suggest that if you're having a purely edit experience in SNAC, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, if you've only opened a SNAC record to fix a date or to add a death year or to add some important information to a biography note or any other element, you can specify that to your reviewer. Say, I've only edited the biography note. I haven't touched anything else. So review just the biography note. Or I've updated the record with a couple of new variant names. So just have a look at those, please. And that way your reviewer can really sort of move through the review experience rather quickly and get the record back to you. So that it's not required to add these messages, but if you need to send something really specific or let your reviewer know something in detail, you can use this feature here. And then I'm going to find Scotty's email address again and then send review. And then I will wait. Notice here that Jeanne Quick to See Smith's record is designated and locked for review. So I wait patiently while Scotty has a look at that and sends it back to me with comments, if any. On up on my notes. Okay. Now that I'm caught up on paper, I'm going to take a moment to catch up on my slides. Again, the slide decks are designed to give you a step-by-step, element-by-element progression through your create experience. So you should find pretty much everything you need to know there, but I'll also emphasize that at any time during your experience, you are certainly welcome to reach out to any of the SNACSchool instructors or your reviewer or both. If you have questions, we don't leave anyone sort of like, groping about for answers on their own outside of the SNACSchool experience. You can always contact one of us for help. Let's see, that's sources. And then I wanted to talk a bit about linking names for the enslaved if you're in that area of work that I'll do this for now. That very recently, as recently as 2 weeks ago, the SNAC team finally had the particular relationship types that are used to give detailed contextual relationship information between two entities, especially with enslaved persons and those who enslaved them. We now have a very specific relationship type between those two. Previously, the relationship type between an enslaver and the person they held captive was owner of or owned by. And the enslaved description group worked for quite some time to convince the SNAC governance that that was not sufficient and not appropriate and did not give a specific description of the relationship. And because we do strive in SNAC to provide as much specific context in relation between folks who are found in archival records, we wanted to do the best we could to make that change. So if you are describing enslaved persons, of course, there's a lot of additional information you can research on the SNAC resources to learn more about how to do that. But if you're relating them, an enslaved person to the person who enslaved them, you see the example here. We use the Nancy Carter Quander example. And Nancy Carter Quander was enslaved by the Washingtons at Mount Vernon and at other area estates and farms near Mount Vernon. And we are able to express that relationship in the SNAC record specifically now. So you see in the upper right-hand corner, the Nancy Carter Quander clip out of her relationship tab in her record indicated enslaved by Martha Washington. And then if you go to Martha Washington's SNAC record, which you see in the bottom right, you will see enslaver of Nancy Carter Quander. Excuse me. Jodi is among a group that takes the title Enslaved Description Group in SNAC, and I'm happy to work with Jodi and other archives experts and documentarians on that particular effort for SNAC as we strive to bring forward identification and description of those persons who were not given the proper place in the description of archival materials in the past. And this is just one of those steps to try to bring some a level out the way that people are described equally and not being suppressed in the record by any way not being suppressed in the record, I guess. So if you ever encounter describing enslaved persons, remember that this these two relationship types now exist in the system.
Jerry, there's a question from Roger in the chat.
Yes.
For person entity, for occupations, where are those occupations derived from? And is there a place that we can look at for scope notes for these to assess whether they may or may not apply for our given record?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it, Roger. The occupation headings that you see, along with the subjects and the activities terms, are built in a behind-the-scenes thesaurus that was a result of those types of terms being raked from archival finding aids and other descriptive information that was ingested in SNAC over the years. As we speak, we have a computer tech vendor company in Charlottesville, Virginia, working on improvements to the way that we manage those terms in SNAC. And we are hoping that within the next 6 months, we have a fully operational and editable list of headings. Now, that said, that's a ways out for being able to fully manage that thesaurus the way we would like to. But if you have a situation where you can't find a particular term in the system, you can request it from me. You can contact me directly and say, hey, I want this occupation term, or I need this topical subject term. And you might be perhaps finding it in the Library of Congress subject headings or some other control vocabulary resource. If you can send me the information on that, I can add it rather quickly in the background of SNAC. It's not a difficult step, and I can do it rather quickly. Okay, are there any other questions about entering person names? I do just a brief presentation, not a full demonstration on how to do family names. I know that there are family names listed on the spreadsheet, and some of you might be doing those, but I'll just basically go through the demo here on the slides. But do ask, please speak up if you would like me to demonstrate how it happens in SNAC. The elements for family names are a bit different, of course. And there are two that are required, two required components. The first is the family name, and that's the last name, the surname of the family, and then an indicator of the family type. And simple as it can be, the family type is almost always family. Other options there are dynasty, kingdom. I would have to, I'm sure in the naming, all that additional information we have on the SNAC portal has examples of different family names, and you can find those there. Though it is optional, the place is an element that is oftentimes added to family name headings in SNAC in order to differentiate. Jodi mentioned in Module 2, family names by their very nature can be very vague. If you think about names like Smith or Jones or Williams or Johnson, it helps to add additional information to the heading so to clarify, qualify, or further describe the family and make it identifiable in the authority file. Then you would always, as usual, assign the preferred, code in the language and the script, and then do your rules information. Then you continue on to the other tabs, adding the biography, places, relations, and then your sources. Family name components overall, and we would like to cover it here, is that the date is optional. Putting date information around a family name is a bit weird. And although I guess in some cases it can be warranted, if it helps describe it or differentiate it from other family names in the system. But again, family name is required, family type is required, name addition is an optional element, but the place, in this particular instance, we're using the example for the Mertens family in Waipahu, Hawaii. And you can also add the name of a prominent family member to further distinguish the family name, to make it more specific. And you note that the prominent member element of the family name is entered as last name, comma, forename, excuse me, I should correct myself, surname, comma, space, forename, comma, space, date elements. And you add it all into one text string there. And then note that once all that information goes into the SNAC record, SNAC has automatically created the new family heading at the top. I always point out at this step that notice how many different types of punctuation are used in a family name. And that makes us more thankful that SNAC is doing the heavy lifting on the family name stuff. Down here at the bottom of the slide, and you all have access to the slides, of course, you will find live links to cheat sheets for family names, and then there's a PDF of name elements that can be used in conjunction with this to help you sort of find your way through entering family names. Any questions about that before I move on to editing? Okay. Editing SNAC records. After you've had your records reviewed, and once they've been published, you can always revisit that record to make additional changes. As we've talked about a bit already, is that you might want to add a death year, or you might want to add additional biographical information, or through your research and processing of collections in your archives facility, you may have discovered that one particular person was related to perhaps a corporate entity or another person through your research or through processing archival materials. That means it means you can always go back and edit the SNAC record. Once you land at your dashboard, you've got a number of options presented to you. It has a list of recently published records. These are not only your published records, but any records recently published in SNAC. If you have any in-progress edits, you can find them in the center of your dashboard. Your locked for review, that's going to be a list of the SNAC records you've created, saved, and sent for review, and you're waiting for your reviewer to give you a response. And then locked edits in general is where you have a number of records possibly that you're editing, but you're not ready to send them for review, or you're not ready to have them published yet. So you have a lot of options there. When you approach your, I'm sorry, there's the part about parsing. There is a parse feature. If you enter SNAC and you're having a purely edit experience, it means that you're not creating a new record. You've just searched SNAC and you found a name entry there and you want to edit the record, then you're editing a record that's someone else has created or it was ingested a long time ago. If they're name records that were ingested a long time ago, you may find all the elements of the name lined up on one line under name without any breakouts for surname, forename, or dates. To quickly edit these elements into the necessary components, you simply click parse and it will move those elements of the name into the proper components, and then you proceed to designate as preferred, add your language in your script, add your rules, and save and move on, editing the record, perhaps adding biography, other information, and then send it to your reviewer. There is no parsing feature for corporate body. It only works for person names. We like people to know about it. More people using SNAC edit and create person names than any other entity. So I guess they figured it would be more powerful under person names. And then editing reminders. So you enter SNAC, you go into SNAC, you've found a name. It's a record that already exists. It could be, again, an old record that needs updating in a lot of places. We ask folks to look for updating the codes for languages and scripts, the rules to RDA. We like to have at least one resource relation. It says here that it's required, but it's never a required step. The SNAC record can always be saved and published without a resource relation, though when it comes down to it, having that resource relation in SNAC is really what SNAC is all about. It's leading researchers from a description of the creator or subject entity, the person, corporate body, or family, out to the related archival resources. So that's why we encourage folks to add information for those related resources. You can add internal CPF information if you have it or want to add those extra elements. You can add the external CPF links, and then, of course, we encourage you to have at least one source. Like Wikipedia is always a popular one. And then there are many examples in SNACSchool that you follow for giving your citations, statements, the found data, the links, and all that good stuff that goes into your source entries. Remember to save your work as you go, and then after you've saved it, of course, send it for review.